Alright, hey everybody, welcome to part 1 of my maybe 15-part series about how I went to Japan and what happened on the trip, which has eventually been dubbed the Anime Tourist Trap Trip. So this will eventually add up to a giant video about everything that happened once I finish all 15 parts and I put them together. But in the meantime, I'm going to release them one by one because why the fuck not? Anyway, everything I'm talking about is pretty wildly different in terms of vibes and what happened, so I'm going to sum it all up to the following. I used to live in Japan. I don't anymore. I almost starved to death, the food prices were high, the prices for everything were high, and I suffered from constant racism and I didn't achieve my dreams. I decided to come back this year to sell the score, close out small business, and mostly do a summer vacation entirely of anime tourist traps, entirely during one of the country's most brutally hot weeks on historical record, with an average temperature of 110 degrees Fahrenheit or over 41 degrees Celsius. Some of my friends came with me on this trip to see and experience some of these traps, but I'm going to obfuscate their identities in this video to keep it as vague as possible, and the point is I was there and I wasn't always alone. I might do some of these videos as storytime animations because in some places I was forbidden or forgot to take photos of what actually was going on, but I still actually remember what happened. Anyway, let's get into it. So, this time around I flew into Haneda Airport instead of Narita. I had previously always flown into Narita, but this time I finally put it together and I finally contextualized that even though it's technically cheaper to fly into Narita, it's not. Because Narita Airport is northeast of Tokyo, the money you save by flying there is completely canceled out by the travel expense of having to travel back and forth from urban Tokyo to way too far out there in Narita. So I discovered on this trip that Haneda Airport is actually way nicer than Narita, and I guess it's because they're in the process of significantly overhauling it and updating it. And previously Haneda had the reputation for being the older, less maintained airport, but I guess now in this year the situation's flipped. And so I returned to Japan, and I was immediately greeted by the most technologically menacing and largest toilet I've ever seen in my life. Look at all these crazy accessories, what the fuck. Anyway, on my first night back, immediately after arriving into Haneda, close to midnight, I decided to stay at Haneda's infamous robot airport hotel, which kind of seems like a meme and kind of seems like a joke. It's been known about online for a couple years now, and it's kind of a funny thing, because whenever any news organization is just having the worst, slowest news day, they'll bring up, hey, did you know there's this robot hotel in Tokyo run entirely by robots? Maybe that's the future. Maybe in some dystopia, maybe in some crazy year, all businesses will fire all their employees and replace them with robots. Anyway, so yeah, I jumped off my plane and immediately went straight for my first tourist trap, the Tokyo Robot Hotel. And now I'm going to tell you how much of a tourist trap was it. And I'd overall say it's pretty high up there on the tourist trap ranking. Like at the end of the day, when you break it all down, it's really just a normal hotel with the front desk staff replaced by 2 robot dinosaurs and a robot woman, and somehow you're paying double the price of your usual hotel for all that. Well, the robot hotel was created, I want to say, over 5 years ago when it was a groundbreaking idea that Japan would be entirely saved by robot workers and not people having sex. In the age of Elon Musk and his now oppressive armory of clankers, it's not quite as charming. Also, making things worse, when I arrived at the hotel close to midnight, the 2 robot dinosaurs had already shut down for the night, leaving only the robot woman acting as a bare minimum of concierge, and she wasn't that helpful. So the robot hotel is pretty much a gimmick at the end of the day. The robot concierge just walks you through signing in through a console, and that's basically it. The big deal at the end of the day is you do more work to sign out through a self-checkout system, and that's really what you're paying double for, a self-checkout system. A few days later, I stayed at a Toyoko Inn further in Tokyo, and it had the exact same self-checkout system, except the concierge was not a robot. And since she wasn't a robot, she was able to hold my bags for me while I checked in, and then when I went to the beach afterwards, she gave me a coupon to buy things, and that was pretty nice of her. Now, for the record, I also realized after the fact that I have no idea how holding my bags would have worked if I had needed my bags held, if I had shown up early before I could log into the hotel, or if I had to switch hotels slowly throughout the day. I'd also heard that the hotel's entire staff were robots, and had kind of been given this mental image of this decrepit building, this giant robot terrarium, crawling with all these effective robot insects that keep it clean and tidy. But maybe that's no longer the case, because they didn't seem to have a human maid staff, a human cleanup staff, and a kitchen crew keeping everything working and running throughout the night. I really can't imagine that there was ever a time where they fully laid off all the human employees and replaced them all with robots, so that's sort of a lie, maybe just a myth. When we checked out in the morning, the robot dinosaurs were finally activated, but they really just kind of move around and roar at you. The last big trap / gimmick of the robot hotel is that it is extremely close to Haneda Airport. And while it's true that there are honestly closer hotels, even closer to the airport, if you really wanted to split hairs about it, the thing is that this hotel is about 20 minutes away by bus or car, and it's only 3 stops down the line on the subway. Now, a lot of people I noticed besides me were staying here just to get quick access to the airport, and the robots are there kind of to sucker people in with the quirkiness and the uniqueness of the experience. Because I do have to point out that on a certain level, you kind of need a hotel in Tokyo because the trains stop running after 11 p.m., and then taking a taxi from this hotel to the airport is the only way to reach the airport in the middle of the night. So by being close to the airport, you're saving money on the taxi. But now that I've fully seen it myself and fully comprehended it with my own eyes, I want to say while it's not the worst hotel near the airport, and maybe on a certain level the robot staff maybe could help people checking out at 3 a.m. in the morning for a red-eye flight, there's definitely probably cheaper and closer options near the airport that I could have gone with instead if I just wanted to stay at a hotel near the airport. I really just came to this hotel to see those infamous robot dinosaurs and assess what the hell the deal was. So in conclusion, is the robot hotel in Tokyo a tourist trap? Yeah, 100%. It's a massive, huge tourist trap. The robots weren't even turned on when I got there, and they give worse service than any human concierge, which is kind of big when you're in a foreign country and you don't understand Japanese perfectly. So the only justifiable reason to stay at this hotel is the story of, hey, I did it. Hey, one time I stayed at this hotel run by robots, and it was just a robot hotel. They did have some goofy luxury-themed rooms available, but I couldn't afford any of those. I just stayed at the standard cheapest room in the hotel, which was cramped and barely livable. And yeah, nothing really to write home about. The room wasn't any better or worse than any other Japanese hotel I've ever seen. So in conclusion, yeah, this one's a tourist trap. I would say if you really want to see a robot hotel, go see it. But if you're just looking for a hotel to stay near the airport, there are definitely cheaper and better options. Okay, update addendum here. So I actually found this article here from thetravel.com that apparently details that very recently, last March, like 5 months ago, apparently the robot hotel started laying off the robots and replacing them with human workers. Very ironic, actually. But yeah, as it turns out running a hotel entirely with robots didn't always work because the robots just would always fail whenever they found an unexpected problem, which apparently happens very frequently at your average hotel. So yeah, I guess the reason that the robot hotel was so expensive and the robots were performing so poorly is because I guess the robots are actively being phased out right now. So I guess that changes my review a little bit, just because now that I think if they are in the process of phasing it out, maybe there is more reason to go there. So I guess I feel lucky I went there before it no longer exists. But at the same time, the robots had already been phased out at such a level that I really don't feel like I got the so-called social media robot hotel experience that everyone was advertising. And maybe that's also why I feel disappointed in the trip, on top of the fact that I paid basically double to get nothing. All right, yeah, that's the end of that. All right, see what happens next.